had the camera the other way round. So this is just a quick live. T-top on Momo. You like the X on the shadow, X shadow on the thing there. So this is just a quick live because we used this as a portal, and having this dressing gown on was important to our little uns. We were up after, well, no, it's we just come out of our Shintosai breathing for a few hours since sunrise. And what has been really strong this morning was it's reminiscent, but the memories of when we worked in a care support home. I don't know the PC. We don't know, and being autistic, we ought to, one would say, but we're not great with our words. Words aren't our strong point. For people with autism, for autistic people, we'll be one of them. And so this is going back to, I think it was only a couple of years we did that for. So maybe 2013 to 2015. So this is, let's say it's about 2014, 2015. I think it might have been 2015, because this incident that happened was towards the end of working there. We were going to do it for ages, the job, because we needed another job and some money, and it worked to our situation, but we didn't because, well, we were very sensitive in our own sense of smell and lots of things. But eventually we did start this job because we wanted to prove to ourselves that we could care for people that were more vulnerable than us and change adult nappies and all kinds of things, and clear up sick, even with our acute sense of smell. Because when we worked in hospitality heaps, we would never clear up sick, or we struggled because of our sense of smell and how that would impact us. But we started it in the end, and we could do all that. But the reason we left was because we're in these places, one of the most important things is consistency. And if one doesn't believe in the protocol that's in place there, it doesn't mean that because their opinions and belief systems differ, they can go against the protocol. They can do what they can to change the protocol because they don't think it's fair, or leave, but to go in and then create inconsistency against the structure, we don't believe in that. But one of the things is, we don't know the right wording. It's when they are going to cause harm to themselves or someone else, then you have to stand in and kind of physically restrain them. And sometimes it can take a few support workers to do that. And there was an incident where we had to step in and this is when we were an I. We've always been a we, but this is when the conscious mind didn't know about that we were autistic, didn't know about our DID, didn't know about all of this stuff. It was all suppressed, and we had put on a front because that's how we'd grown up to be like that, because that's what we learned to be okay and safe. So masking it all, hiding it all. So there was this episode, this incident, we had to support one of the guys, and from every inch and ounce of our body, our bone, our heart, it was wrong. And we did it because we do stuff and we can do stuff, and we had to do it, and that was the protocol. But after that, I'm not sure how long after that it was, but after that we left. And that sat with us, because you hear on the TV and the news all these places that the caring industry is just, I'm not even going to attempt to put words to it, just diabolical. There's the people in it that are amazing, absolutely amazing. And then there's the people in it, it's like anything, it's got both ends of the spectrum, that on a power trip. So there's people in the police that are amazing, and then there's the people in it that were bullied at school and need to feel a sense of power, and that are on a conscious or subconscious power trip. Most of the time it's kind of subconscious, because these people generally aren't really aware. But there might be glimpses of it in the subconscious and being slightly, of the conscious and being slightly aware. And we saw that as well on my on mild ways. And what was coming to us this morning is, that not in all of them, not in all of the homes, but in some of them, because we used to work bank and we used to go around quite a few in Cornwall, the doors are locked. So it's just like a glorified prison. And we understand there's reasons for that and there's protocols for that. But we believe there's always a better way, a compassionate way, a gentle way. And this is where the understanding of energetics. So the fact that we've experienced having to physically restrain someone that's more vulnerable and to every core and ounce of our being it being wrong, and then us being in that situation where we weren't quite locked up because our door in the psych ward wasn't locked, but when we were physically restrained by 8 people initially because we came round, but we were still locked inside, couldn't use our voice, couldn't use our body when we were being physically restrained. And so the fact we've done that to someone and the fact that we've been in that, for us, I mean, we could look at it as in, well, it's karma, what comes around goes around, but we see that as a very child state, emotionally immature perspective. We see it that to really be able to have an influence on changing systems, one has to experience both sides. Managers and top end managers can't change the protocol for people on the ground, people on the floor, unless they're in it or unless they communicate and interact with people that actually know what's going on. Because otherwise the new systems they're not going to work. They're not going to be the best because they're created by someone that's not in it, that doesn't know, doesn't understand the first-hand experiential logistics. And so that's what's come to us this morning. That's why this dressing gown's on, because when we left the house, when the story was created by some of us, the faster vibration, so what people call the soul, what people call their higher selves, what people call their guides. For us, we call it the ultimate personalities that don't have access to the body. And the faster vibration energies, the gamma, the superconscious, the future, the gamma rays. Although I don't know if it's gamma waves or gamma wavelengths. I'm thinking it might be more like the gamma wavelengths because maybe gamma waves are harmful, but it doesn't matter. If this is where we attempt to do our best at sharing that words aren't our strong point and to feel the energy behind the words. And so this dressing gown was worn for us to leave the house, being naked underneath, then being told that we had to take this off. With the story that was created so that we were naked, so that we would get picked up by the police and get some support that we needed, even though from our perspective it was a physical condition where we couldn't swallow and our body was giving up. The hospital wouldn't have been the best place for us. And so we'd never had the physical first-hand experience of a psych ward, mental hospital. So, and because our mind is so strong and we can do mind over matter, because that's what we've done our whole life, we had to have an experience that we had experience, or we had to have a story created, episode created, which was non-tangible, because we then wouldn't have that physical first-hand experience to be able to then navigate ourselves out of it or change it like everything else we could do. And so, yeah, we were naked, we got picked up by the police, and we eventually got taken to the psych ward. At the hospital, they gave us medication, which sent us over the edge more, which meant we fully blacked out, fully lost it. I mean, we were almost fully losing it anyway. We were only having glimpses. We were still here. We would go in waves and be able to have glimpses of this tangible reality and be able to communicate, but it would be in waves. But when they gave us the medication, that was it. There's a whole period that we don't know how long for. Eventually we will, because eventually we'll get the medical notes. But we've had to make sure that we're really in a strong, grounded place in our heart and our body and our mental state and our spiritual state and our immediate environment, so that when we do that, we've set the foundations for any triggers that might occur, and we can then just focus on navigating ourselves through the triggers or the consequences or the symptoms of those triggers, specific triggers. Because we can go into dissociative states and lose it a bit, but there's normally glimpses of that co-consciousness still inside. It's not complete blackouts. anymore, and if it is, it's not for long periods of time, and I suppose we don't really have anything to quantify or measure that with. So we don't know until after the events and looking back type thing, but that's why we take loads of photos and do all this audio stuff and videos. And so we feel there's a reason that we've experienced it from first hand, and we've been on both ends of it. And that's why we're in the dressing gown, and we're doing this on a live, because for us this is a portal into the collective unconscious through the subatomic realms of the microcosm of nature, of humanity. It's the bridge. We see the World Wide Web because it was created by humans, but it's through the unseen energetics that's all around us, that carries all the information from wavelengths, radio waves, TV signals, Wi-Fi, all of it. We see it as a portal, a gateway. And a lot of people we are seeing now going into the realms that we've just been in and struggling, whereas for us, we're coming out of them. And because of our DID, and because we're wanting to find language that that communicates and includes all of us, but because there's some of us that are on different ends of the spectrum, when we do find that language, we feel that's going to access a lot of people because of the diversity. And so, yeah, this is something about changing systems from the inside out. We can't change people, we can't change governmental systems, but we can change the energetics that people and governmental systems react to. And that's by going deep into our central nervous system, deep into ourselves. And the deeper we go into ourselves and the central nervous system, with compassion, with patience, with harmony, self-nurturing, with groundingness, with like conscious awareness as much as possible, that's then when these subatomic energetics start changing. Is it critical mass, the 100th monkey effect? And so that's the collective unconscious. So people that dismiss the collective unconscious, oh, that's just the collective, it's not part of us. Well, it is part of you, because if we're being triggered by the collective energies, it's because there's frequencies in us to do with our own life that's resonating with it, harmonically or dissonantly. Otherwise we'd be able to have an indifferent approach to it. And some people are able to manage those energies by going, okay, we're having a dissonant reaction, we're going to focus that energy of what it's triggering in us with our resonant frequencies, maybe not knowing that's the case, and project their anger out in a good way. Other people project their anger out maybe in a perceived bad way, putting a duality reality to it. Tito Tomo Momo. Yeah, we did watch something yesterday where everything in the universe works in relationship from one thing to another. So if you think of it like that, that you're working in ratios, so you're working in fractions, because a fraction is a ratio of baking, and you're making something that's 1 part flour to 1 part water, keeping it simply, because you could go, it's 1 part flour, 1 part water, 1 part milk, 1 part sugar, 1 part eggs. So you'd have 5 parts, 5 ingredients, but it would be 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. Or it could be 5 parts but 2 ingredients, so that would be 3 parts flour, 2 parts water. But we're just going to keep it simple and go, it's 1 part flour, 1 part water. That's a ratio of 1 to 1. So that's actually a fraction of 1 over 1, which is unity, it's oneness. But to get that unity, to get that oneness, it's not, even though it ends up to be 1 on its own, the masculine linear line, the masculine energetics, for us to comprehend that oneness, that singularity from the universal laws of nature, or the multiversal laws of nature, because everything is in relationship to something else. You have to look at it as the one, semicolon, 1, or sorry, colon, 1, colon, 1, a ratio of 1 to 1. You're looking at one part of that one to another part of that one. And when it's written like that, and you've got two parts, that brings in the duality concept or the polarity concept. It's duality if we have an immature emotional energetics. And that's not to be condescending. That's just to say that our culture, our humanity, our collective, especially in the Western world, but everywhere, we think this is a global situation in the majority because of a lot of things that happen. We suppress trauma, we don't face things. If we're suppressing something and not facing it, and not facing our emotions because it's too painful, it's too hard, that's an emotional immaturity. So it's not about being condescending or patronizing. It's just those are the only words we've got at the moment to best describe what we're attempting to describe. So if we can see that the duality, the one to the one part to the other one part, which is from kind of two wholes because they're two separate entities, flower and water, they're different, although flower does need water to grow and turn into flower. Then you've got the duality perspective or you've got the polarity perspective. It's interesting because we just saw this on something the other day written down in that way, and that was like, well, there's two things there. That brings in the dual, that brings in the duality or the polarity, which is a dual nature situation. But again, this is just humans attempting to make sense of something that from a lot of people's perspectives is incomprehensible and not able to be understood. But for us, we understand what they're saying because from a logical left brain, linear masculine sense of understanding, awesome, we're really getting into it because that's a throat chakra clearing, then no, it's not able to be understood. But from our perspective of understanding, which is not the masculine, linear, logical, basically our current societal dominance at the moment of the way systems and everything are done, it's from the feminine, the whole, not the part, the whole. And this is the circle, which turns into the figure of 8 with a twist, because in this unseen quantum multiversal laws of nature's realms, where the Wi-Fi and the internet and the waveways are the portal through all this, where it's all the space around us, the 99.9999% of an atom that we cannot see, that's intangible, that holds all that information that is in the spectrum of resonance that is non-tangible, that is the human body form isn't able to pick up on. It's not in our spectrum of vision, it's not in our spectrum of hearing, it's not in our spectrum of, I don't know, taste or everything else, but it is in our spectrum of sensing. But the sensing comes from a deep inner experiential perspective, which is the feminine, it's the whole. And from that perspective, there is a sense of understanding, because from that perspective, there isn't a need to break it down in the masculine conceptual way. And this is from our experience and our understanding, learning to continually put words to it. And we weren't going to do this. And then we didn't know which one to do it on. I mean, Zanoni Snowflake's out of the window because we can't go live on that. And the live was important for this exchange of information. And we had one person come on actually, but we were still able to stay composed. Intergenerational consciousness, our stunted generational consciousness are little uns. There are emotionally immature aspects, but they're different networks in the body. They're still in the body, but they're different whole networks in the body. Whereas the average human will grow up to form one whole circuitry of the body and generally be one dominant personality that will change throughout their life, if they're open to change, kind of in a linear format through experiences that happen that create pain and trauma and change the perspectives on life. But for us, it's not happened like that. We were fragmented off into separate personalities because of our trauma. Different ones of us have grown up at different ways and different times, and so we've got what we just said, but in each personality. And so what the journey we're going through now is bringing that all together in a way. Well, we're not even going to attempt to put words to it yet. I think we have done before, but it's not for this moment. So yeah, we're doing this. So then it was like, well, what channel do we do this on? It's like, well, if we're using if our channels relate to different energetics, Our Shinto self-empowerment channel is kind of to the past us, but it's to self-empowerment. It's to the past us, but it doesn't mean it's our past. For us, oh, this is exciting. For us, the past is all memory and data information that's happened already and written and out there. So it doesn't, so it's the experiences and the history that's already happened in a linear concept. But for us, it's the tangible, it's the denser frequencies that's been left, and emotions that's been left, or the memory information in our connective tissue, our fascia. And so it is self-empowerment through the spirit that resides within everything, but through a tangible perspective. So Shinto-sai is the Shinto yoga experience, which is the same, but it's from more of a collective perspective and experience than a singular experience. So Shintos is a singular experience of how can we empower ourselves, which is a child perspective of empowerment and play, rather than a domesticated, conditioned adult perspective, which is more immature, which is about power and greed. It's more immature emotionally. A child still connected to God consciousness, Christ consciousness, unconditional love, an inclusion for everyone, not separation and parts and dominate someone else to become more greedy themselves. Shintosai is a collective of all of that. So it could be bringing it into a slightly professional manner, but we want to get away from the professional manner. It's more about bringing it into a collective of inclusion of all. So you've got the collective dancing in harmony that then can create a singularity effect, but it's not, because it's coming through individual expression, but the individual expression has become synchronized and harmonized. And then Joy to Coco is the journey of involution to co-consciousness. So this is the one that's untangible. This is the one that's subjective rather than objective singular or objective collective, I suppose. And so that's why we've come into this, because we don't know when we'll be able to have a real impact on changing systems from the outside in, from a tangible physical application. But we are doing the journey inwards right to the depths and the best we can for us, and just feel deeply in our heart that because we've experienced it from all sides and what we're going through personally, that whether it is something that is eventually put out there in a tangible outside change the system's way or not, we don't know, but we don't need to know that now. Time will tell. But what we're doing at the moment is, and so we're putting this out there so that these energetics, these frequencies, these messages get out there. Maybe you see it in person, maybe you don't, maybe it's just out there now in the informational, multidimensional, amazing web of unseen information. And so that was the importance of why we put that out there now. And we are in our therapy room. So all those energetics are there. We're sleeping in here at the moment as well. So we're working on the deep astral plane energetics as we sleep in here. And then to be able to communicate it out like this is bringing those frequencies, those energies, those ideas and concepts into the physical earthly realm. And also that's why, I mean, there's other reasons why we wear our dressing gown, but that's also why we're wearing our dressing gown. So yeah, we just needed and wanted to get that out there for whatever the reason. Maybe those aren't the reasons, maybe those are just our conscious mind's reasons to put to it now, and there's another reason, who knows. But we were intuitively led to do this. And it wasn't an intuitively led to do this and then we're just going to do it and be reactive. There was thought and time and space in doing it. All right, bye if you have come to this and watched it. And then we always get confused about how to turn off, but there it is. Bye.